Hi, I'm Femi OK. Today on the stream, what is going on in Mozambique? If you ask most Mozambicans, when the fighting started in the northern part of their country, they will tell you October 2017. But in the past few weeks, the fighting has intensified. Civilians are hiding in the bush. They are fleeing from their villages. We've even had reports of beheadings. Earlier, we spoke to Dircio Sanzana, and this is what Dircio told us earlier.
In Palma, the capital of Cabo Delgado, many people are displaced. They don't have food, and they don't have home, and they need hope. They need hope to understand that they can continue living in Mozambique without terrorism.
Can Mozambique escape escalating violence? That is our question for today's show. Weigh in on YouTube and be part of today's discussion. Joining us to talk about Mozambique, we have Zenaida Quiteria Egidio. Good to have you guests here. Zenaida, tell everybody who you are, what you do.
I am a researcher at Human Rights Watch.
Good to have you here on the stream. Quiteria, nice to see you. Welcome to the stream. Tell everybody who you are, what you do.
Thank you. My name is Quiteria Gringan. I am a political activist and president of Young Women Leaders Network.
Egidio, introduce yourself to our international audience.
Hi, my name is Egidio Vash. I'm a communication advisor.
We also reached out to the spokesperson for the Ministry of Defence in Mozambique. We reached out, they didn't respond to us. But we are still going to talk about the situation down on the ground. If you could explain what was actually happening in terms of who is fighting who. Zenaida, how would you do that? How would you break it down very simply for us?
I would say that the Mozambican security forces have been trying to restore order and security in several districts of Mozambique after a group of gunmen believed to have Islamist link, specifically with ISIL, started attacking villages, burning down houses, beheading people, destroying infrastructure, and leaving 500,000 people displaced, in almost 2,000 people dead.
This has been going on for quite some time, Egidio. I'm just looking here at this headline, trying to unpack who are the fighters launching attacks in northern Mozambique. I'm going to scoot down here. There's a breakdown, as Zendaya was saying, who this group is. They're affiliated with ISIL. But why Mozambique? Why did it happen in Mozambique?
Well, thank you for your question. Definitely why Mozambique? It's because these terrorist groups are exploring fragilities, weaknesses of a country, which, apart from being oil-rich, is also resource-rich. So, Cabo Delgado specifically, you have their riches from oil, timber, minerals, and many other riches. And these ISIS-affiliated groups are looking for paradises where they could further explore and grow economically. And there is a past. There is a history of illegal mining, illegal logging, human trafficking, and drug trafficking. As you know, Mozambique is definitely a corridor, or has been for years, a corridor of drug trafficking. So, to my understanding, these thugs, ISIS affiliated, are in Cabo Delgado now, simply trying to make sure that, to further expand their sources of income, to further, in order to further finance terrorism across and around the world. So this, in short, is who these guys are for now.
We're looking at the debris after a recent attack, which happened just in the past few days. I just want to share this with you, Quiteria, which is the victims' response, some victims who survived this attack, the most recent attack, and then ask you about the mood in Mozambique right now. Let's have a listen.
Fomos para Marula. We went to the Amarula Hotel, inside the Amarula. We stayed 2-3 days there. The Shabab surrounded us. After 4 days without eating, we decided to leave there for the bush. Some white colleagues lost their lives in the exit. Not just 7 people, many died. That was a difficult experience. It was a massacre. I think none of us want to go back there. Many people died. Some stayed behind. I can't say if they died, because they are still missing at the moment.
Gidea, how are Mozambicans dealing with this ongoing attack after attack after attack?
There is a difficult situation. We can say a lack of hope. What concerns me the most is that all these victims of terrorism I've been engaging with, they converge to refer that generally there are signals before the attacks, and sometimes political elites of the districts, including local administrators, local municipal leaders, police commanders, are normally evacuated before the attacks, leaving the population at their own luck. And this is creating a big gap at the vision that people are feeling abandoned, and especially because there are few access to trauma service, psychological service to support these people that are dealing with it. And also that people are feeling that many times it's really difficult to identify who is a terrorist, who is government, who is for the defense force, because they most of the time use the same uniform.
I see Ajstream nodding. Go ahead, articulate your nod.
Yeah, definitely, I do understand, and I do agree with Kiteria as well as with the NIDA, that the situation is a bit more complicated, because exactly that these terrorists are mixed. When they plan their terror attacks, they first immerse themselves in the villages, and from within, they start killing people, shooting indiscriminately, and killing people with machetes, and etc., etc. So it's a real complicated situation, and it's a bit more different kind of war to which we as Mozambicans, because we already know we've gone through a 16-year civil war. So it's an urban war. It's a very difficult. Things start from within the communities, shootings in the communities. So here, definitely, intelligence collection is very, very important, and preventing than to remediate is also very, very important. But we need to acknowledge that it's a difficult situation for now.
Yes, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I can say that terrorism is always difficult, and it's really difficult to fight terrorism. But the feeling that people really has is that most of the times, not only their information prior to some attacks that are being ignored, but also there is an impression that the results from different studies, both from civil society and also from public universities, are not being sufficiently taken into account by government and defense forces. And also that dealing with all of this, there is a distrust between citizens on defense forces because of all this situation that these forces have been using the same uniform, but also because there are reports, including the Amnesty International report, that shows that there are gunfire coming from both defense forces, DAG, mercenaries, and terrorists. So for terrorists, we are not surprised that these attacks would happen, but we are not comfortable to hear that people are reporting that also they are defense forcing people attacking. And this also is not only Amnesty International saying that, but also a study from University of Kinshasa and the Rovuma University have been pointing to the same findings, that people are really upset with the way it's being managed.
All right, so this is one of the things that I really do want to unpack. So the civilians do not know whether soldiers are firing on them or whether insurgents are firing on them. Zendaya, go ahead.
I think regardless of whether the Mozambican government knows or not who is fighting against, there are few obligations that is of any state in any conflict. And one of those obligations is to make sure that people are safe on the ground. And what we have seen over the past 3 years is that people are caught between the insurgents of this group called al-Shabab locally, although it has nothing to do with al-Shabab in Somalia, and the Mozambican government forces.
All
And
right.
in most times, what happens is that civilians who have been fired at, civilians who have been severely attacked, they are waiting for hope. They are running after hope. And when they meet the men in uniform, they're expecting to get from him some sort of help, rescue, an indication of where to go to in a moment of difficulty. And that's not what is going on the ground. As Kiteri explained, in some cases, the civilians are not the priority. In other cases, what we have seen is that those same men in uniform are the ones that are committing abuse against those same civilians. So
Let,
Mozambicans are between a rock and a stone. A rock and a knife. They don't know where to go to, and they're left on their own. And as we speak, Femi, we are talking about thousands of Mozambicans down in Palma, down in the bush of Palma, who don't know where to go. They are trying to flee for their lives. They're trying to protect their children, and they're running, for example, some of them to Tanzania, where they've been chased out. They cannot cross to Tanzania. They are walking for kilometers to try to find safety without any help from the authorities of the security forces. That's not acceptable.
Well, let's agree on 2 to 3 things basically. The first thing is that yes, fighting terrorism is very complicated unless there is a international cooperation in whatsoever means it means. Second thing is that we also need to understand who is Mozambique. What is Mozambique? Mozambique is a really poor country with its defense and security forces trying to figure out. Also
so they can't tell, Egidio, they can't tell your soldiers, who you are proud of your soldiers. I'm just sharing this here from your Twitter account. I am proud of our soldiers. Your soldiers cannot tell the difference between civilians and insurgents, and they're shooting on civilians.
No. It's possible, but when you are at war and you are already immersed in that war, I must agree and I must acknowledge that our soldiers, especially the intelligence, there is room to upgrade and to sophisticate.
Let me bring in this thought. Let me bring this thought in here, because I want you to wrestle with this one, because you are the person who is proud of your soldiers. You're proud of the Mozambique military. This is Jacqueline. This is what she's saying about what is happening right now in northern Mozambique. Have a listen.
What we've witnessed is that while fighting has been ongoing for the past 4 years, the intensity and frequency of attacks has increased dramatically over the past year. And assailants, as we saw in Palma, are increasingly willing to use tactics that may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. This has immense implications for physical security of civilians, as well as for the growing humanitarian crisis in the country. And unfortunately, what we've also seen this coupled with is government security forces that are either ill-equipped to respond to the threat or are themselves perpetrating crimes against civilians. And so as fighting expands, these threats just multiply further.
This is problematic because the civilians need to be protected, and we're getting reports of beheadings. Civilians are living in the bush, and the army needs to know the difference between who they need to be fighting and who they don't need to be fighting.
Absolutely, Femi.
Absolutely. In the last 3 years, I think our defense and security forces have upgraded, and their learning curve has actually.
What does upgrading mean?
To the top.
What does upgrading mean?
Well, take the example of Palma. In 11 days, for example, they managed to retake Palma. And also today, for example, they have managed to connect, for example, Afungi to the Palma villa. So in 11 days, this has not happened in 3 years. For example, with Mosimbo da Praia still under siege. So you can see some progress there in terms of capacity in response
All right.
As well as trying to work with people as well. So,
let's move on. I hear what you're saying. It's because you were such an enthusiastic supporter of the military that I wanted to press you on this. Zendaya,
there's no way.
Yeah, we have questions. We have questions for all of you. So let me share some of these questions from YouTube. This is one that I want to share with you. Kiteria, you can take this one. It is going to be difficult to return to normalcy, to normality. What is that even like now? Kiteria?
It's really difficult. It's really hard. I've been talking to different victims of terrorism, both though some who are still in dangerous places and others who are already in safe places. And all of them say that it's difficult to really understand this conflict without looking to the external and internal causes, and especially because most of them who were inside the conflict zone reports that the administrator was the first one to leave. Normally, the command of the police was already in a safe zone. And for these people, the trauma that they are feeling, to feel isolated, to feel ignored by the defense forces, and sometimes even to feel that their possessions are being expropriated, their own belongings are being taken by even defense forces. One of the ladies I've been talking to, she reports that when she left Kisanga district after a terrorist attack, they had to pay for 700 mets, it's $10 for a boat to take them to the secure area. And when they arrived there, military defense forces asked them for money to allow them in because they didn't have papers. So all this situation is even when they arrive to Pemba, they still face many of these challenges. They face challenge to access aid, sometimes being asked even tax for aid.
There is no idea of returning to normality then, as far as you're concerned. Yep, the short answer to that response. Okay. Let me just bring in Joseph King here. Joseph King.
I don't think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think Palma specific would be. I think Palma will be a bit different because, for example, tonight the first lorry carrying people from Afungi Peninsula back to Palma is about to arrive. For example, so the peopling of Palma will begin in a different way, other than, for example, Mosimbo, which is unsafe for people to go there.
Let me bring in some more of our YouTube.
Let me bring in
some more of some YouTube.
I would really appreciate if the local administrator would be the first person to go back, because many of these people are just going back for cameras to see. There's a lot of censorship, and people are saying what they are being told to say.
That is a big charge.
So
what evidence do you have of that? That is a very big charge. Why would you go back just for the cameras?
Yes, of many people telling.
Can I come in on?
Go ahead. There's a pause. Use it. Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
On the issue of Palma getting back to normality, I wanted to clarify one point that is very important. In a conflict like this, it's not just about the government regaining terrain and claiming that it has defeated. It is important to create conditions in Palma for people to return. From what we have seen already on the television reports about the people who arrived in Palma, it's a kind of show for everybody to see, not necessarily presenting us with conditions for people. We haven't heard, for example, from the Mozambican government, if the people that are returning to Palma will find places to sleep, if it's safe for them to return. Are there any hospitals for them to seek a treatment if they have been injured? Is there any system to distribute food and water and any other things that they might need? And more important, what mechanisms have been put in place to ensure that something similar to what happened 2 weeks ago on the 24th of March will not happen again once people return to Palma? So it's not just about claiming that Palma has been retaken from insurgents. It's also about presenting to the Mozambican public, and especially to residents of Palma, a plan, a very clear and safe plan for people to return home and back to normality.
So
and
this
those
is
conditions are in place we cannot talk about normality.
So, guess this is what we heard just on Sunday from the governor of Cabo Delgado province and a spokesperson for the Mozambique army said that we have control. Have a listen, have a look.
We have completed the clearing. It was the only sensitive area that we needed to clear. It is completely safe. In the next few hours, if we need to bring in any planes with food for the population, that can be done with no problem. It's secure.
We have presence here because we know our security and defense forces defended the country. And everything that has been said and the government position is that the job has been done. We defeated the enemy.
I want to go to this question here on YouTube. This is Joseph King. Joseph wants to know, what is Mozambique's government doing right now? Gidio, go ahead.
Well, what Mozambican government is doing right now is try to take back Palma, to make it more secure than ever, and to bring back people along. Other than that, also to clear other districts affected by terrorism, such as Macomia, Nangade,
is it working?
Mosimbo da Praia. So
is it working?
Well, it's working. Femi, look, I was talking about the learning curve. But if you see, this is the first major attacks in the last 90 days. So there is progress there. I don't think, and I can't tell you that this is a matter of years. No, I think Mozambicans must be prepared for a longer counter-insurgency effort, because it's not only on bullets or on military side of the counter-insurgency. You need also to consider other dimensions of, like social dimensions, economic dimensions, as Kiteria and Zenada would agree. So not only military solution, this war on terror is not only a military solution, it's also a social solution, it's also an economic solution, it also encompasses international cooperation.
Zenada, we're 4 years into this insurgency. Do you see how Mozambique gets out of this situation?
I think the main issue that we, as Human Rights Watch, for example, have raised over the years is, one, the need to regain trust among the population. If this conflict continues, the people on the ground should look at the Mozambican government as a serious government that wants to protect them, and should look at security forces as those forces that are there to protect them, not to attack them. One thing that is very important is to investigate human rights abuse, past human rights abuse. The second one is to make sure that anyone who has committed abuse against civilians is severely punished.
Zenada, but is that happening? I hear you say that so often on Al Jazeera. It's not happening, though, is it?
No, it's not happening. We haven't seen. Instead, what we hear from the authorities is a frequent conversation about how we should take care of the soldiers and how we should praise them for their work. Yeah. No one is disregarding the work of those young men on the field fighting this group. What we are saying is that the same way, the same energy, the same effort they put into fighting what they call enemy, they should also put into saving civilians and protecting civilians from who they are calling enemies. The fact of the matter is that the Mozambican people should look at the men in uniform and at the government and those who, as those who have the responsibility to protect them in a moment like that. It shouldn't be a situation where people are left to do things on their own. We have had reports on the past 3 years of people having to pay for boat fares.
Yep.
For boat fares. We have had people having to pay for food.
Zenada.
We have had reports of people having to pay for healthcare. That shouldn't be the case. All those things should be provided for free by a government.
So you're listening to Zenada. Zenada, thank you for being part of this discussion here, advocating for the civilians caught in the crossfire of the insurgency in northern Mozambique. Have a look here on my laptop. You can follow all of our guests on Twitter, Zenada, Kiteria and Egidio. Thanks for watching. I'm Femi OK, signing off for this episode of The Stream.